Welcome to my channel and to this tutorial for the crochet patterned top and the crochet pattern dress. For both these patterns we make use of the top down in the round method of crochet. We begin at the neckline, working our way down the yoke and to the body of the, in this case, the top. And for the dress, we continue down the body towards the bottom of the dress where we increase to create a slight flare on the dress. We finish off the dress with a little belt that goes at the waistline. So I've used two different yarns for these projects. For the crochet pattern top, I used 100% cotton yarn, which is a DK or double knitting light worsted weight in a color Pacific blue. And for the crochet patterned dress, I used a bamboo double knitted yarn, which it's double knit, so it would be the same as a light worsted yarn. And I noticed that I got a good result with both the top and the dress using the same number of chains. I noticed that the length in the chains at the start was slightly different, like in that the bamboo yarn, the length of the chains was shorter than the one for the 100% cotton yarn. But as I worked the pattern, it somehow worked out perfectly with regards to the size. Like it didn't alter the size in any way. So that's like a good option if you know that you can either use 100% cotton yarn or the bamboo yarn, making certain that it is the double knit or the light worsted yarn. So that just gives us two options for this pattern with regards to yarn. This tutorial is for a size small to fit a bust of 32 to 34 inches. Hope you enjoy this tutorial. Let's begin. We'll begin with a slip knot, chain 112. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Continue to 112 chains. Now that my chain is complete, I'll join the chain that's attached to the hook to the first chain. To do that, make sure that this entire chain is not twisted. And join to that first chain with a slip stitch. Round 1, chain 1. Single crochet into that first chain as chain 1. So to single crochet, insert your hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. Continue with single crochets to the end of the round. I've completed round 1 working those single crochets across. To end the round, it's slip stitch into the first single crochet from the start of the round. Round 2, chain 3, 2, 3, chain 3 counts as a double crochet in this case the first double crochet in our stitch pattern. Then it's another double crochet into that same stitch as chain 3. So I've yarned over, insert the hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. Then it's chain 2 and 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. One and 2. So I've worked 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the 1 stitch. That's in that same stitch from where the chain 3 comes out of. Then it's skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into that next stitch work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets all into the 1 stitch. So the stitch pattern is skip 3, 1, 2, 3, into the next stitch work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets all into 1 stitch. Continue to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 2 and I've worked that last 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the 4th stitch before the end. So I have 3 stitches to go. So then I'll skip those 3 stitches and then I'll end with a slip stitch into the 3rd chain from chain 3. Round 3, slip stitch twice to get into that first chain 2 space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Chain 3 counts as the first double crochet. Then it's another double crochet, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same chain 2 space. Skip the next few stitches to get into that next chain 2 space, and again I'll work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space. So for this round, into all the chain 2 spaces, I'll work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Continue to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 3 and I've worked that 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the last chain 2 space. So to end the round, it's slip stitch into the 3rd chain from chain 3. Round 4, slip stitch twice to get into that first chain 2 space, then chain 3. Chain 3 counts as my first double crochet, so then it's another double crochet into that same chain 2 space, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same chain 2 space. So round 4 is an increased round. For our increased rounds, we'll be working our increases in between our stitch pattern, the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and we'll work those increases by working a chain in between our stitch pattern. So I've chained 1, then into that chain 2 space it's 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Then it's a chain 1 and onto the next chain 2 space, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Then it's a chain 1 and I'll continue with the pattern, working 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 spaces, and in between my stitch pattern I'll work a chain 1. Continue to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 4 and I've worked that 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the last chain 2 space. Then it's chain 1 and slip stitch into the third chain from chain 3. I've continued with the pattern working to round 12. So for round 5 was a repeat of round 4, where I worked the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into every chain 2 space, and in between the stitch pattern I worked chain 1s. Round 6, it's 3, 4, 5, 6. Round 6 was an increase round, so I worked my stitch pattern and in between I worked chain 2. So instead of chain 1, this time I worked chain 2s in between my stitch pattern. Round 7 was a repeat of round 6. Round 8, an increase round. This time I worked chain 3 in between the stitch patterns. So instead of a chain 2 this time, I worked the chain 3s. Round 9 was a repeat of round 8. Round 10, an increase round. Here I worked chain 4s in between these stitch patterns. Round 11 was a repeat of round 10. Round 12, an increase round. Here I worked chain 5s in between the stitch pattern. For each of those rounds, at the start of the round, I slip stitched twice to get into the first chain 2 space, and at the end I slip stitched into the chain 3 from the start of the round. Before moving on, I've placed 4 stitch markers along the yoke. So counting from the start, that's my first chain 2 space, 1, 2, 3, 4. Into that 4th chain 2 space, I've placed the first stitch marker. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Into the 11th chain 2 space, I've placed the second stitch marker. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Into the 18th chain 2 space, I've placed my third stitch marker. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Into the 25th chain 2 space, I've placed my 4th stitch marker, and then we're back to the start again. So with those 4 stitch markers I've marked off, well, the 4th and the 1st stitch marker marks off the back body, and then it's the 1st and the 2nd stitch marker marking off the shoulders or sleeves, and then it's the 2nd and the 3rd stitch marker marking off the front body, the 3rd and the 4th stitch marker marking off the next armhole space or the sleeves, and we're back to the start again. Round 13, I've slip stitched twice to get into that first chain 2 space, so I'll continue working my pattern with the chain 3, double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 spaces. Okay, but for this round, into that chain 5, the 3rd chain from chain 5, I'll work the pattern as well. So into that 3rd chain, I'll work the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. So the stitch pattern for round 13 is the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 spaces and into the third chain from the chain 5 that we've worked in between. So that's first, second, third chain. Into that chain I'll work the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Continue to the end of the round, replacing the stitch markers into the chain 2 spaces that we work here. So I'm at that first stitch marker and I've worked the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into that chain 2 space. I'll replace the stitch marker into this chain 2 space that I've just worked above it. Continue with the pattern to the end of the round, doing the same at all the stitch markers. I've completed round 13 working those 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the third chain from chain 5s and the chain 2 spaces. To end the round, I slip stitched into the third chain from chain 3. Notice that I've also replaced the stitch markers into the chain 2 spaces that was worked above its original position. We'll now work the body. For round 1 of the body, I've slip stitched twice to get into that first chain 2 space. Then I continued with the pattern, a chain 3, double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the first chain 2 space. Thereafter 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the next chain 2 spaces to the first stitch marker. So I'm at that first stitch marker and I work the chain 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into that chain 2 space marked by the first stitch marker. Then it's chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll join to the second stitch marker into that chain 2 space marked by the second stitch marker, at the same time making certain that this armhole space faces in your direction. Then join to that chain 2 space with 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Continue with the pattern with our chain 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 spaces. I'm now at the third stitch marker and I've worked that 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 space marked by the third stitch marker. Then it's chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll join to the fourth stitch marker, making certain that this armhole space faces in your direction or towards you. Join with 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into that space marked by the fourth stitch marker. So continue with the pattern to the end of the round. I've ended round 1 of the body by slip stitching into chain 3. Round 2, I chain 3 and continue to work the pattern into the chain 2 spaces to the chain 5 that we worked in the previous round under the armhole. So into that third chain from chain 5, I'll work the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Continue with the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 spaces to the next armhole. I'm at the next armhole space and I've worked that 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 space before the chain 5. I'll now work the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the third chain from chain 5. So that's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 into that third chain. 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Then it's continue with the pattern into the chain 2 spaces. To the end of the round. I've completed the body of the top. I worked till round 20 by repeating round 2. Thereafter, it was round 21 and round 22 where I chained a chain 1 in between the stitch pattern. Round 23 and round 24, I chained chain 2 in between the stitch pattern. Round 25, round 26, I chained chain 3 in between the stitch pattern. So my last round, to edge the bottom of the top, I worked the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the chain 2 spaces, and I worked the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the second chain from the chain 3 in between the stitch pattern. So this round was the same as round 13 of the yoke, where I edged the sleeve of the top. So that completes the top. All that's left to do is to fasten off, cut off all the yarn and weave in the edges. We'll now move on to the crochet patterned dress. So the pattern is exactly the same as it is for the crochet patterned top. The only difference here is that I changed my yarn, the color of the yarn. You can see every alternate round is a different color for the yoke. I continued with the body of the top just as I had done for the crochet patterned top. Only this time I worked to round 24. For rounds 25, 26 and 27, I increased in those rounds, and just as I had done for the yoke, I chained 1 in between the stitch pattern. Rounds 28 to round 32, I increased again. This time I chained 2 in between the stitch patterns. So I chose to change the color of the yarn again from round 33 to round 53, and here I increased as well, working a chain 3 in between the stitch pattern. So those were chain 3s, just as I had done for the yoke. My last round, round 54, here I repeated round 13 of the yoke, where I worked the stitch pattern into the chain 2 space and then worked the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the center chain from that chain 3. So I didn't really want a big flare on the dress. I just wanted it to come out slightly as it got to the bottom of the dress. If you want a bigger flare on the dress, as you'd increase the number of chains here. That means you'd continue to increase with a chain 4 in between your stitch pattern, and then ending off with a chain 5 in between your stitch pattern. I choose to end with an odd number of chains in between the stitch pattern. That gives me a chance to work the last round, because for the last round, the edging, I need to work that 2 double crochet chain 2 double crochet into the middle of the number of chains that I've got here. Like in this case, I've got a chain 3, so I've skipped the first chain, worked the stitch pattern into the middle chain, and skipped the third chain. So that just evens out the pattern for our chain. And of course, I worked the pattern as well into the chain 2 spaces. Well, once the edging's done, it's fasten off, cut off the excess yarn, and weave in all the ends. For the belt or the tie that goes around the waist of the dress, I've made a slip knot and I've chained 300 chains. I know that's a lot, but chain as many as you need for the length of the belt that you're looking for. So then for the next round, it's into the second chain from the hook, single crochet into the remaining chains. I've completed those single crochets all across that chain for the belt. So now I'm at the end, I can fasten off and cut off the excess yarn. I'll just knot it here to secure. For the tassel that's attached to the edges of the belt or tie, I've cut lengths of yarn that should be about 10 centimeters, 4 inches in length. So I'll fold that in half and then insert the hook into the stitch right at the edge of the belt. Then take the lengths of yarn that's been folded in half, while holding it tight against the hook, pull it through the stitch at the edge of the tie. Like so. And then it's bringing those ends into the loop and pull tight. On the other side of the belt, I'll do the same. The yarn, take it through, pull through the stitch right at the end. And pull it through that loop. I'll just neaten it up by cutting them all to the same length. Then the last thing to do is to thread in the belt into the dress, and it's best to know exactly where you want to thread it in before doing this. So I'm doing it just at the waistline.